Well, Fran Berry joins us to talk Epsom Classics ahead of a huge couple of days. The Betfred Derby Festival, Fran. It's a huge week for Aidan O'Brien and the Ballydoyle team, obviously. One of the weeks sort of most significant above all others for the operation, you could argue. And it could get off to an ideal start with Ylang Ylang in the Betfred Oaks. Now, I quite like picking holes in favourites, but I'm struggling a bit here with this Frankel filly. How do you weigh her up coming into the Oaks?
Yeah, Matt, a huge week as it is every year for Team Ballydoyle and Aidan O'Brien, but maybe more so than in other recent years, at least when you take into context how the spring has gone for them. No classic win as of yet, and obviously what happened in the 2000 Guineas in Ireland and in England. The horse coming up short, although River Tiber did run a promising race last Saturday at the Curragh, and as it is often the norm, classic season comes around very quickly and we're straight into Epsom. And Ylang Ylang, of course, she performed very well at Newmarket into the 1000 Guineas. It's quite an eye-catching run in the respect of the Oaks, given the way in which she travelled for the first half of the race, but she got badly outpaced on a downhill run to the dip. She had to switch on the Ryan Moore and then finish off very well late on, albeit in a bunch finish, but given she won the Fillies Mile last year and every day she ran, she looked like she'd get better as she goes up in distance. I think the run of the Guineas confirmed the promise of what's to come, you'd think, stepping up a distance here on Friday. She's drawn towards the outside of the stall, 12 with Ryan on, and she looks very uncomplicated for Frankel. She tends to settle very well. She does things in a good manner. And as we've seen last year, when she does knuckle down under pressure, she can find plenty. And I think she should be firmly in her comfort zone, stepping up and trip here in what looks a wide open race. Typical, a lot of unknowns with the fillies, but this filly's been there and done it at Group 1 level.
Yeah, I'm similar to you. It's really is quite hard to pick holes in her. Now they do have the O'Brien team have a fairly interesting second string here. She's certainly second string on jockey bookings, and clearly yet to show the similar level of form that we've seen from Ylang Ylang being a Group 1 winner. Now, Ruby's a Red is actually a maiden, but she's a very promising one, isn't she? And she's bred for this sort of test too.
Yeah, she is, and she ran into nice filly in Galileo Dame on very testing ground back in April, and there's plenty of promise in that. And on the back of that run, Connections obviously went to Lingfield for the Oaks trial there, and it was a pretty remarkable run, given that when you read the form figures, she only beat a half a length to death. She must have been 10 lengths off the pace, 2 furlongs out, and badly outpaced at that point in time. Seemed to not handle the downhill run to the straight at all, and lost her pitch on very quick ground, or what appeared to be very quick ground, at least to my eye, at Lingfield. And she ate up the ground once she got organised for Ryan Moore. The last furlong was good, but from the 2 to 1, she was hanging left. She was all at sea. But when a penny dropped, she did finish off very well. She's a sister to Found. She's bred to get better as the year goes on as well. And with Epsom looking like it's going to be on the soft side, at least for Friday, she's got a decent setup, but she will need to be a lot more streetwise than what we've seen at Lingfield. Maybe she'll have learned a lot from that run, but it could send her one or two ways. She'll either be a lot sharper and enjoy it, or she may not enjoy coming down a hill a second time. But on soft conditions, you'd like to think that she should be a little bit more adept at travelling, better for longer.
One of the key conundrums going into the Oaks, I suspect, because she does look highly promising, as you say. The other two Irish fillies.
You're a statsman. When is the last time Aidan won a Oaks?
Oh, well, I've just spoke to Dave Orden. He says he can vaguely recall it, so that might give us an idea of how far we're going back.
I was racking my brain when we were talking there. I remember plenty of maidens running well in it, but it's a big step to go and win one as a maiden. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is. I suppose the big surprise is that she's yet to win a race at all. Obviously, they pitched her in fairly deep quite early on in her career, but yeah, you wouldn't put it past Aidan O'Brien, would you, to win the Oaks with a maiden, a well-bred maiden at that. The other two Irish fillies in the Oaks represent the same strand of form, the Salsable Stakes. Now we've got obviously Dermot Weld's Azealia. She was a half-length winner that day. And then Noel Meads caught you looking. She finished fairly close up in 4th. Would you say the winner's superiority will be upheld here at Epsom? And where do you see them fitting into the puzzle?
Yeah, start with Azealia first. Her form is in the book as a maiden last year. She beat a filly called Wendla, trained by Ger Lyons, who's gone on to win a Guineas trial in good style in Group 3 company this season at Leopardstown. I thought it was a really, really good return to action in the Salzburg Stakes in Navan. She was held up out the back. She travelled strongly throughout, and she followed the eventual second, Purple Lily, throughout and picked her up really well inside the final furlong, only winning by half a length, but I think she was value to an extent for the winning margin. And given she was very weak in the market on the day, her stable hadn't come into form at that point in time of the season. I think it was Dernwald's second winner of the season when she won. He may well have just had a winner night before in Cork on the Friday. I think Azalea, it was a really good effort, and she can only improve off that run. And the fact connections are pitching her in here and going to Epsom, it's not the DK Wild style of training. He doesn't travel outside of Ireland unless he's really thinks that to come forward and going to be competitive and getting the money. And I do think her stepping up and trip is going to be a good fit for her. She can really step forward from that. The former the Salzburg Stakes, Purple Lily, I think the eventual second ran better than the finishing position when she's beaten 5 lengths in the last Sunday's Guineas. The third ran down the field in the Irish Guineas. But overall, I think Azalea is open to a lot more improvement up in distance. And it's very good to see the Aga Khan colours back at Epsom. Caught you looking, got on a real roll for Noel Mead last year, winning that Group 3 in really good style, keeping on well. And she was very short in the betting for the Phillies Mile last year at Newmarket, where it may well have just been the end of the year for her. And she, of course, by Harzand. Just never struck me as a Doris Dairy, even though she's a master craftsman mare. The ground will be very suitable. I just think there'll be more horse with further improvement perhaps this time of the year than she has, but she's a likeable filly in her own right, and the softer the ground, the more it'll play to her strengths.
She's an interesting one, all right. If I could press you for a selection, is it too soon for that, Fran, or are you with the well filly there?
I'd have maximum respect for Azalea. I think improving and stepping up and trip, she's entitled to prove off that seasonal debut. Overall, though, I do think Elang, the Guineas, 1,000 Guineas trial Newmarket's often a very good trial for the Oaks. And I think stepping up and trip, she sets a really good standard at the top of the market.
Just sticking with Friday, we do have another traditionally strong Group 1 on the card. Now, we've only got the 5 runners for the Holland Cooper Coronation Cup. But we have Irish interest here through Luxembourg. I was just looking back through the past 10 runnings of this, Fran. We've only had one Irish winner in the past 10, and it was Highland Real in 2017. What do we make of Luxembourg trying 12 furlongs again here on Friday?
Yeah, I was quite surprised when you're brushing up in your form that Luxembourg, I never ran at Epsom actually. You forget, you just assumed that he pitched up in the year of his derby or maybe last year in this race, but he's quite unexposed at a mile and a half. And I do think them couple of runs in Saudi and in Dubai on a rock hard track really don't play to his strengths. He seems to be better in Leopardstown and Ascot. He's performed well in the past, and going to Epsom at a mile and a half should suit him very well. He will need to be at his best to take on Emily Upjohn, who's entitled to improve for that run back in Maidan in March. And the Gosden team, they seem to be taking a run with their older horses this year. You'd hope that she's near her peak and could back up last year's win in the race. Well, very interested in Feed the Flame. I think he's an exciting contender. That really good run back in the Prix back at the end of April. He's a proven Group 1 performer on testing ground as well. He may well be the value, Matt. Tactically, it's going to be though interesting to see what way the race develops. Luxembourg, he often can go forward. Emily Upjohn's a hold-up filly, and how it plays out will be interesting on the day, but the ground is going to have a big say on the result.
Definitely, yeah. I think they're hoping to miss the heavy showers in the area through Thursday, but you never quite know which way the wind's blowing down there. Hopefully, come Saturday, the ground could be a fair bit better for the derby itself. Okay, let's tackle the Betfred derby then. Obviously, the kind of build-up has been quite strange, I must admit. We've had plenty of trial winners falling by the wayside for various reasons, and obviously the standout 2-year-old from last season, City of Troy, completely bombed out in the 2,000 Guineas. Now, you can never write these O'Brien horses off. Of course you can't. But if you watch that race again, I suppose you can't help but think City of Troy is a poor value derby favourite, can you? But in your heart of hearts, Fran, is this horse going to bounce back?
No. In a word, I will be
I'm inclined to agree with you. I mean, I really struggle to watch that back and think how they can complete the retrieval mission again 12 months on from August Rodin.
And you got to take into context, even when he's at his best as a 2-year-old last year, Matt. He never struck you as a Derby horse. You know, he was in
Okay.
in my mind, he was also the type of horse that you'd assume if things went well from as a 3-year-old that he'd be Guineas, possibly Royal Ascot, if not an Eclipse, and then on to Juddmonte, Irish Champion Stakes, that kind of a program. He never really had it in my head, at least, that he'd end up in Epsom in the Derby. For all that they talk with the good Inner Brian 2-year-olds at the end of every year is he'll be a Triple Crown horse. That just seems to be rolled out every year on year, and it's just hard to make any excuse for him in Newmarket. You know, it's way below par. I suppose if he finished fifth and died inside the final furlong, it was nearly too bad a run. Now we've seen last year Gus Rodan, he bounced back from a really bad run to Guineas to go and win the Epsom Derby in really good style when he had conditions and the benefit of run and stepping up and trip. But I just never had City of Troy as a Derby horse in my head, at least, and I'm fascinated to see how he run on Saturday. New angle to what is going to transpire possibly on Saturday is Coolmore and Ballydoyle putting out these work morning videos of City of Troy and Los Angeles working yesterday morning, and visually at least, and I'm sure somebody will break it down with timings maybe or that. But Los Angeles for me was far more impressive in his bit of work that I seen on Twitter, at least, than City of Troy. The lead horses, it's hard to know what speed they went initially, but in the last 2 furlongs, I thought Los Angeles was definitely eating up the ground in comparison. City of Troy didn't look all that strong in the last furlong for me. The market will tell its own story on Saturday, but I have to look elsewhere. How could you face into him unless the money really arrives for City of Troy? And were he to bounce back, Aidan O'Brien will get all the plaudits on Saturday. But for me, Los Angeles, I was mad about him when he won at Tipperary last year. The maiden that he won has worked out extremely well. He then went and won that Group 1 under Sumion in really good style in France, keeping on well late on in tough conditions. And in the parade ring for the Derby trial at Leopardstown, he looked very unfurnished. He looked like he was carrying a lot of condition. He looked really well, but he looked like whatever he did at Leopardstown, he would improve a lot for the run in fitness wise. He got up to beat Euphoric in a messy race, albeit, but a steadily enough run race, and he had to pick up and put the race to bed with a strong finish inside the final half furlong. I thought it was a really good effort. He can only improve off that, and stepping up to 1.5 miles. If the juice remains in the ground, if it remains good to soft, I would like to see it on the faster side of good for him. He's a big unit. He could be 17 hands, this horse, Matt. He's a huge unit, but he's very well balanced, and provided the ground stays on the easy side of good, for me, Los Angeles is the only horse that I could take out of what I've seen this year and what I've seen on the internet yesterday in their respective piece of work.
Hard to knock that unbeaten profile, isn't it? Do you recall, Fran, that the past, well, the last winner of the Leopardstown Derby trial to win the Derby? I think you might have been riding that day. Would you have ridden against High Chaparral?
I would have ridden in the same day, yes, yeah. And I remember High Chaparral getting beaten and maiden at Punchestown Racecourse as a 2-year-old, Matt. So there you go. There's a bit of trivia for you.
Yeah, he's a big player, Los Angeles. For me, they just finished in a little bit of a heap, not only in France, but also in that trial as well. And I just wonder if that form's quite up to the likes of Ancient Wisdom or not. But there are other Irish horses in here as well.
He definitely needs to improve Los Angeles, but I just think the scope is there with him. Based on paddock inspection pre-race in Leopardstown, he can only come forward fitness-wise, and the extra trip, you think, based on his 2-year-old form, should really play to his strengths as well.
I suppose if you're making the case there for Los Angeles, Euphoric, who you just mentioned, he was only beaten a length or so, wasn't he? You know, he's going to be suited by a step up in trip. We've seen it before from these second and third strings. Is he sort of on the radar at 40-1?
A sporting outsider, I would suggest. You know, he's definitely open to more improvement. Based on that run, now he did maybe have to run the race to some extent in Leopardstown, but there was a lot to like about the effort as well. And it all depends, you know, in the first furlong how he's going to perform. If he's sacrificed as a pacemaker, you know, you've probably done your money. But if he's ridden in mid division and ridden to finish off the race, he could be a horse that could pick up the piece later on.
Yeah, interesting one, because you have got a lot of real outsiders in this race, and the traffic could be stacking up, couldn't it? One horse that might be quite forwardly placed in the Derby is Dallas Star, who won the Ballysax first time back. He looked to have his limitations exposed, should we say, as a 2-year-old, but big improvement seemingly on the face of it anyway. First time out, was that Was that a question of coming up against sort of ring rusty rivals, would you say, and the fact that he was fairly fit on that really testing ground when he won?
He was very, very well ridden on the day on tough conditions, and he did stay on very well. He seemed to know be very comfortable on testing ground, and he made full use of that. And at the time, seems to be a theory that Aidan O'Brien's were definitely taking a run on very testing ground, and perhaps that transpired. Illinois stepped forward to be second to Ambient Friendly in the Lingfield Classic trial. The Euphrates, who was second on that occasion, just looked slow, didn't he, at Lingfield? But he's an interesting horse, and I think looking at him and the way the race developed, he may well have had his derby back at Leopardstown. But given his foregoing style, he's a horse that could get up, and if he's not pressed too hard on the front end, he could outrun his odds also. But I do think easier ground, easier side of good, definitely would play more to his strengths than drying ground.
Very, very true. That sort of signs off for the Irish runners in the Betfred Derby, but we do have more Irish interest in the race. Obviously, Dylan Brown McMonagle rides Dancing Gemini, who's trained locally by Roger Teal, and this is a real rising star of a jockey, isn't he? Tell us a little bit about Dylan and maybe how you think this colt might fare in the Derby for him.
Yeah, Dylan's only obviously in his fourth or fifth season riding now. He rode his claim about 18 months ago. He's been based with trainer Joseph O'Brien since he was an apprentice. Prior to that, he was one of the leading pony race riders. He, I think, won multiple titles and rode a lot of winners on the pony racing circuit. So before he even started on the track properly, you heard his name mentioned and you heard he could be promising. But often, as is the case, Matt, you hear about these pony racing jockeys coming to the track and it doesn't transfer. It's like having underage footballers and then you put them in the big leagues to come up short. But with Dylan, that is definitely not the case. He's got better and better. He looked very good from the word go, almost like Jack Kennedy when he started on the flat for like 6 months before he went jumping. Very natural and very clued in, and seemed to have a knack of being in the right place from day one in a race, and he's learning all the time. Obviously, last winter he had a fantastic run of things out in Australia. He was out there for 2 months. He rode many in many group races. He rode a couple of group winners as well, and that experience has really stood him, I think, in good stead. He's come forward as a rider, and he's the de facto number one to Joseph O'Brien now, from what appears in recent times, and obviously picking up the ride on Dancing Gemini in the French 2000 guineas was a big opportunity for him, and he made full use of that. He only went down by half a length to Metropolitan, albeit in a bunch finish. And he's an interesting horse stepping up in trip. You can see why connections being by Camelot are taking their chance as well. How you way up to form a Longchamp transferring to Epsom is a little bit of a question mark. Last year, though, he did win well in listed company, and maybe that run in the Mortimer, the Doncaster Mile at the end of the season, maybe just you can off give a horse a below par run on that occasion. And the fact Dylan was booked from quite a way out to ride this horse in the French Guineas would suggest that they had it in mind as a plan from quite a way out. So look, he's a really good ride to pick up from, and stepping up and trip you think would suit him very well. And win, lose or draw at this stage of Dylan's career, to have a ride like this around Epsom, great learning curve for him again, and stand him in good stead either way into the future.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. Now, I know you're obviously against City of Troy, and I know where you're going in terms of the alternative bet against him, but do you want to hammer home the selection for this year's Betfred Derby?
Yeah, I looked at obviously on the back of the Twitter morning workouts videos to morning workouts. Los Angeles price has tightened up quite a bit in the market. He's almost disputing favours with City of Troy now. I'm mad about this horse. I like everything he's done so far from day one, and I do think, provided the ground remains on the easy side, like good to soft or soft ground at Epsom on Saturday, Los Angeles stepping up trip is a big player. Wayne Lordan has got a big opportunity to win the Derby, and he will make full use of that. Very effective rider. Ambient Friendly, I would give him a mention. For him to pull in a manner in which he did at Lingfield and finish out as strongly as he did would suggest he's a very good horse. But I just, with that 2.5, 3 furlong uphill run at Epsom, if he pulls like he did at Lingfield, when you come out of stalls, you've got a very short run to the first bend. He was able to get cover and he turned quite quickly again after that. So it's a totally different setup at Epsom. And if he pulls like he did in the first half mile, he'd struggle perhaps to get home. But if he does things in a proper manner for Rab Haviland, he's obviously got a big engine. Great to see James Fanshawe back with a big contender. But I would worry about him in the preliminaries and in the first quarter of a mile. If he does things wrong, he can't finish surely.
Well, loads to look forward to at Epsom on Saturday. Good luck with Los Angeles, Fran. Thanks for your time as ever. See you again soon.
Thanks, Matt.
Download the Sporting Life app for the best racing coverage, including live racing blogs, fast results, stable tours, trainer and jockey interviews, expert opinion, and tips.